Before I introduce the speaker, I'd like to walk you through some of the resources we have here for job seekers. And you can find all of these by going, oops, what's going on here? Let's see. So, okay. Yeah, you can access all of these resources that I'm going to tell you about by going to our website, which is www.ncbiotech.org. And on the homepage, you'll see a tab up on the top there, careers and training. And if you just click on that, all of these options will come down. And so that's how you can find most of the things I'll be telling you about. The first is kind of a talent site. This is our career center. It's actually a jobs board. And this lists jobs just here in North Carolina, biotech jobs just in North Carolina. This jobs board platform actually scrapes jobs from biotech company websites. And so it's going to be really up to date. You can set up alerts so that you can get email alerts to let you know when jobs that fit certain criteria come up on our jobs board. So that's the first thing. We also have a fully up-to-date NCBiotech company directory. This lists all of the biotech companies within the state. This is also fully searchable, so you can search by, let's say, gene editing, and you can find all the companies within North Carolina that are doing that kind of work. You can also search it by area, by region. So that's a good way to come up with a list of target companies that you might want to go after. Of course, our career development network, we have our own webpage where we talk about previous sessions, upcoming sessions, and we have recordings of all the sessions that you can access. We also support over 20 networking groups, and these are groups, all different topic areas. So we have a couple of one that are specific for women, women in bio, and Triangle Women in STEM. We have a Toastmasters group that attracts a lot of biotech people. We have, if you're in the biomanufacturing industry, we have biomanufacturing and process development, which is a really active group. Plant molecular biology, pretty much any area related to biotech, you can find a group to network with. And so I encourage you to find networking opportunities there. Here's a QR code to be on the mailing list for the Dish, which is a newsletter that comes out bi-weekly. And you can learn about jobs, training opportunities, news in the industry, success stories and events. So that's something to sign up for. That'll keep you in touch with what's going on. And then we also have a LinkedIn group that I encourage you to join. This will, I think we have close to 2,000 members of this group, so you can really leverage social media to maybe find people that you want to do an informational interview with, or someone who's working at a company where you'd like to work. So I encourage you to join that group as well. And at this point, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Aileen Wilson. So Aileen has been in HR and talent acquisition in various industries for her whole career. Currently, she's at Pfizer, where she's been for 7 years, and right now she is a candidate experience manager. So she's truly passionate about her work, and she describes herself as a champion of building hiring experiences that are as thoughtful and human as the people going through them. Aileen is just a wonderful person, very warm and generous. And I can safely say that she's read probably tens of thousands, maybe more resumes in her career. And today she's going to present to you her best advice for creating a resume that will catch the attention of a recruiter. So please join me in welcoming Aileen.
Thank you, Susan, for the warm welcome. It's so great to be with you all today. As Susan mentioned, I currently work at Pfizer as a candidate experience manager. That's our nomenclature for recruitment because it really isn't just about recruiting people, but we're also thinking about what is the candidate experiencing through the whole process. And that's something that's really important to us too. So what I'm going to do today, I know that you all have probably been to several different resume writing workshops from different lenses. But my goal here today is just to give you a little behind the scenes, pull back the curtain and tell you what am I looking at? What is my team looking at when we have a job opening, we've got hundreds of resumes on there. What are we screening through? What's catching our eye? And, we hope that you're able to take something from this. Of course, I was speaking with you out there in the hallway, and we discussed how the resume writing process, it's really personal, right? It's personal to you. It's really specific to the job you're applying for. So all of this might not resonate, and that's totally okay. But just to give you my perspective on what we're looking at Pfizer. So we hope that'll help. But excuse me, before we dive in, I want to tell you a little bit about where I work because I'm super proud to work for Pfizer. So and super proud to work for a company whose purpose is to create breakthroughs that change patients' lives. And we've been doing this for quite a while. A couple years ago, we celebrated a really big anniversary, our 175th anniversary. And you can see on our timeline here, we've been working through the years to look forward and see, look forward, but also look at what's currently going on. And here in the most recent year or two, we're really focusing on oncology. We're focusing on different spaces where we feel that we can make the most impact on patients' lives. I also like to brag about our values because when you're applying for a role, it's really important to research the company and take a look at their values and make sure they resonate with you. And this is something that really resonates with me. Courage, excellence, equity, and joy are Pfizer's 4 values. A little bit more about our company and our footprint here globally. I want to highlight on this slide that we do have 30 manufacturing sites worldwide, over 80,000 colleagues around the world. And right there in the bottom right, you'll see projects that are in clinical research. We have 115. So not only are we continuing to manufacture the different drugs that are helping our patients, but we are looking forward. What are the different things that'll continue to help patients? And also, I wanted to highlight the sites that we have here in North Carolina. So we have 2 sites that are part of Pfizer Global Supply, which is our manufacturing and distribution arm of the company. And they're pretty close to here. So we have one in Sanford, North Carolina, which is focused on biotechnology. And also we have Rocky Mount, North Carolina, who's focused on sterile injectable drugs, part of our global hospital and biosimilars business unit. All right, so with that, we're going to dive right in. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to start by talking about formatting, like what should the page look like, how many pages, things like that. And so what does it look like? But then we'll dive into what are we saying? What is the content? And we're going to spend a lot of time there. I also like to touch on frequently asked questions because through the years, a lot of the same questions have come up and I want to address those here today. And then at the end, we will have some Q&A. I think we'll have enough time. Yeah, for sure. If you have some questions throughout, feel free to raise your hand, but we'll also have time at the end. All right, so let's start off with formatting. So again, from the recruiter's perspective, I look at hundreds of these a week, right? So what makes it really easy for us to see what you have to tell us is if it's organized really nicely in a way that's easy to find what we're looking for. So that's what we're going to cover in this section. So this is an example from Canva. So Henrietta is not actually an applicant of Pfizer, so I'm not exposing anybody here, but this is a format that I really like to see, my colleagues really like to see. Again, there's not one right way, but this is one example of something that looks great. And what makes this look great? We have consistent margins. It seems like something that's really basic, but when everything's lined up, it's really easy to read when you're looking at hundreds of these. We've got clearly defined sections. If I'm like, oh, Henrietta, operations manager, I want to see what kind of degree she's got. I can go straight to page 2. I see education. It's really, really easy to find. Consistent formatting of company name, titles, and dates. Again, I can clearly find when did she work there? What are the years? And I can easily count up her years of experience because that's something we're looking at too. But overall, easy to read, no embellishments, no colors, no photos, nothing that's distracting me from the core information you're trying to communicate. A couple more spots I wanted to mention. So summary section. This is a question we get a lot, like, do I need to include something at the top, like objective summary, something like that? I would say objective, I would suggest steering away from that. We know your objective is to get this job, but if you want to put a summary at the top, only use it if it's needed. If your intention in that section is to repeat everything that's listed in your resume, it's not a good use of real estate. If you want to tell me something about you that I can't tell from your resume, for example, if you're someone who's looking to switch industries, or if you're someone who's looking to switch, maybe you're in the same industry, but the type of work you're doing. Maybe I'm in HR, but I want to move into training. Here in the summary, I might talk about why my HR experience is helpful in the training space. So just use that if needed. If you don't have anything else to include there, you can absolutely omit it, no problem. And then also in terms of the order of your sections, we typically suggest that you put your work experience before education. The only time we would suggest flipping that is if you're someone who's early career, or you're looking for an internship or a co-op, or perhaps your first opportunity. In that case, perhaps your education is coming first because that's you're a new grad, something of that nature. All right, so based on what we said, let's take a look at a couple of examples. So Kimberly, again, this is a Canva example, so not an actual applicant. I want to ask you all, what do you think about this resume based on whether it's what I just reviewed or your own personal opinion? Do you think that this is something that's effective? I see head shaking. No, what's that? It's very busy. Yeah, we've got colors, we've got starbursts. I mean, they're really cute, right? But perhaps not really helping you get the job. Anything else? Yeah, and it seems like maybe this is just for the example, but sometimes that happens. Like sometimes we'll see the same thing over and over again, and we're like, you really want to put your best foot forward here in this stage. Well, all the stages, but this stage is really important. Right. Go ahead.
If the photo is too relaxed and it's not a headshot, it's like a sitting body shot. So I know you said you don't like photos, but if I was going to use the photo, that would not be the one.
Right, right. So she's Kimberly is hanging out on her new armchair. It's beautiful, but not really adding anything. Perhaps if Kimberly was applying to a graphic design job or something like that, perhaps it would be more appropriate. But again, I'm speaking from the seat. I'm working in pharmaceuticals. I mainly am recruiting leadership type roles, finance, manufacturing, global business services, procurement, things like that. So this is not something that would come across in our world, so to speak. All right, go ahead. Yes, we did have someone mention that as well. And I'm sorry, we probably can't all hear each other in the room, but yes, education is mentioned twice. So oh, I see. Yes. So, and again, that does happen sometimes. There are people that have typos and things like that in their resume. So it's really important to do that final QC on your resume and perhaps even phone a friend, have somebody help you out, just put a second set of eyes on it. Because you know how it is. You stare at your resume for so long and you're like, oh, I'm so sick of seeing this. Have somebody help you out for sure. Go ahead. I'm so glad you brought that up. I will say in the last 5 years, I have seen this come up a lot, that people will list their skills and they'll have this bar or they'll have like 5 stars and only 3 of them populated. And I'm like, what are you trying to tell me? Like, you're like, okay at this? And there's And when you list out skills, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into the purposeful content section, but saying you're skilled at a thing, that's a way to open, but we want to know what is it that you did that makes you skilled at XYZ. And also, this is so arbitrary. Like, how do you know you're 4 out of 5 stars or that you're, that you're that far on the bar? Like, what's measuring you? So unless there's some type of real indicator or something in the skill that you're trying to communicate that it's appropriate to have, like stars or a bar, I would suggest staying away from that. Thank you for calling that out. Go ahead. Yeah, so we talked about graphic design. This might be nice. And I can think about my accounting hiring manager seeing this and they're like, why did you even send this my way? But yeah, in certain roles, we're really looking to see what you did, how can you represent that through some solid key KPIs, right? Like we want to hear what is it you did? Did you save the company X number of money or what are your overall responsibilities? So great catch. Go ahead.
So to delineate between using the resume and a cover letter, would you not put that in the cover letter? Or are you trying to get that on your resume? Like what you did specifically, because you should start running out of room.
Sure. So, so a cover letter is something that, so the resume is going to be the core of where you're going to highlight your accomplishments. A cover letter is something, and we'll talk about this later too. The cover letter is something that would supplement the resume. You want all of your core information to be in that resume because, to be honest, if I polled recruiters, 9 out of 10 would say they never read the cover letter. So I would say put anything pertinent there. Your cover letter could be supporting information against something like I mentioned about the summary statement. Tell us something your resume is not telling us. Are you telling me more about you, why this role interests you, something something that would supplement?
They've seen in cover letters is what the job requirements are and how you fit that role. So it's like in a tabular format. Here is what they have requested. Here is how I'm a good person. Do you think those get read?
Not often. I'll say that. So for example, the way our applicant tracking system is formatted, I'll navigate to a candidate's profile. My system will parse the resume into some key buckets and information on my front page. And then I can click on another link that says attachments. And the first attachment that comes up is always the resume. And that's what I'm looking at. If I'm poking around for some more information or I happen to see there's a cover letter there, then I will review it. It's thoughtful to do that, but I'll say that there are a lot of people, a lot of candidates that are starting to take text directly from the resume and they're putting it directly verbatim in their resume or in their cover letter purposefully, so an applicant tracking system picks them up and matches the words. So even if it's not in your experience, because you wrote what's in the job description in your cover letter or resume, they're hoping it's going to make that match. So I think that's why there is a trend to that, if that makes sense. Oh, I'm sorry, we had one hand over here, then I'll come back over to you.
I kind of feel like there's too much graphics, which goes against what we showed in the previous exam. And also, when all these resumes are being screened by ATS, would this be the implementation of that?
Yes, that's a great point. So the comment was it's very colorful. There's a lot happening here. Totally agree. It's almost like all I see are the colors in the photo rather than what Kimberly actually did. Secondly, you're absolutely right. I don't know what my ATS would do with this. My dashboard might come up empty because there are times, and the ATS, it's just a tool for us. We're not, I know different companies use it in different ways. At Pfizer, it doesn't kick anybody out or disqualify them based on the initial ATS read. So I would still look at it, but that front page would come up probably completely empty with this format because ATS would have a tough time for sure. Go ahead.
On the cover letter thing, so based on what you just said, is it helpful to actually do one, or is it okay to just skip doing a cover letter?
I have a slide specifically on this later, but I'll say it depends. We'll dive in later. It just depends on what the requirements of the role are and what your intention is to communicate, but we'll dive into that later. Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Is that your perspective, or do you feel like it just needs to be in an organized manner? Example.
It just needs to be in an organized manner, because if you think that a computer is reading, there's some kind of software that's reading your resume, they need to know where to find it. So for example, I've got in my particular ATS, the topics are its work experience, education. And if it can't find where your work experience or education is, it can't pull it into that parsed screen. And yeah, if there are companies that use ATS to knock certain candidates out, then yeah, it's a possibility that you might not move forward in that case. Luckily, that's not our practice at Pfizer. So if there's some glitch in the software, it won't exclude somebody, but it's always your best bet, at least in the industry I'm in, to keep everything pretty straightforward, black and white. Okay. Go ahead.
Aileen, can you repeat the questions? Or
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Is within the section and how it identifies which, so for example, if I put work history or employment history as a work experience, will it find it there, or like it matters the wording exactly?
Sure. Yeah, so the question was about how does an ATS identify if it's your work history, if perhaps there's different titles like professional history or work history or experience, right? Am I capturing that correctly? Yes. So the way our ATS works, I don't want to say most, I can't speak for everybody's, I can speak for ours. The way everything's working behind the scenes, it's not strictly looking for a match for match word. So if it doesn't say work history, the logic behind it, and I am so sorry, I am not a digital technical person, so I can't talk really specifically about how it works, but what we understand from our vendor who supports us with the ATS is that there is logic behind the scenes that understands that, for example, employment history means work history. So I wouldn't worry so much about the way you're wording that, as long as it's clear. Go ahead. Yeah.
So if, let's say, in the second job, let's say I was there for 18 years and I had different roles. Would you want me to repeat the company name that many times?
Sure. So the question is, if you stayed at a company for 18 years, would you want to repeat the company name that many times? I'll say generally no. What I'll see a lot of times is it would say, like, for example, I would have one heading that says Pfizer, and I'm just using myself as an example, Pfizer 2019 to present. And then underneath, I would list all of my titles within my time at Pfizer in reverse chronological order. That's correct. Correct. So, and we can usually ascertain that, we see someone was with Pfizer from 2019 to current, and then there I'm saying, okay, from 2021 to current, I'm in this job. From 2019 to 2021, I was in this job underneath that title.
It directly reads it because the company name is only there once for that first title, for the remaining titles, the company name comes blank. Is that what ATS does as well?
I haven't seen that in terms, so the question is, just to repeat, it's more about is the ATS able to parse when a candidate has multiple roles within one company experience? The ATS isn't perfect, so there are times it might miss blocks of time. For example, I have some people that say they worked somewhere 2024 to present, and sometimes it says 2024 to 2024, like it doesn't pick it up. But again, for us, it's just a guide. So I'm always looking at the resume 100%, whatever the ATS does or doesn't. I mean, you could list it out, but when human eyes are on it, it's like, oh, this is a lot. Like it's saying Pfizer, 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 Pfizer. Yeah, so I wouldn't suggest doing that, but again, it's very personal. If you feel like that isn't working for you and you think it might be creating a problem behind the scenes, then you may want to change it. For sure. Go ahead. Sure.
So, and I've been applying, I noticed like it'll take my resume and it'll put it in the profile. And then it gives me the opportunity to go back and make edits or additions. Is that like what the ATS is reading is like, I mean, I'm sure it's different for each company, but is like that what's scanning and then the resume is also getting attached because all the documents are still attached?
Sure. So the way that ours works, so the question is about when a candidate does an application, there's an opportunity you attach your resume, but then also your resume will populate into a profile having those years of experience. And the question is, what is the ATS reading? The way our ATS works, it's reading the resume. It's not necessarily reading that profile information. The profile information exists though. Like if I need to go back in and I'm like, okay, something's not making sense. And there are times I'll go back into the profile and get some clarification. So again, I can't speak for other companies, but for us, it's mainly the resume that's being read. Okay, let's take 2 more questions and then we'll move on in the content and then we can take more questions at the end. We'll come here.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, you described the ATS sort of putting resumes in front of you. From your perspective, what are you looking at first? How do you prioritize? Is it skills? Is it things like that? Or?
Sure. So the question was, what is being prioritized by either the ATS or the recruiter in terms of what we're looking for? Is it skills? Is it experience? I have a whole slide on that, and I will get there in a bit in the purposeful content section. So great question. That is included in the topics. Go ahead.
Appears to be just what you're saying is as if you're both looking at work experience or education as the way that you center things. My question is, for instance, you have 30 years experience. Now, if you're not looking first at that summary at the top, should that actually go under work experience to understand this is a vastly different candidate than someone with 5, 10, 15 years experience? So I'm asking you, just from that first glimpse that you're looking, if someone 20, 30, 40 years experience, do they put that in under work experience because that's where you're looking first? Or should it go summary or even board experience, 30 years experience, these unique experience that put them in a different category?
Sure. So the question is, if you want to highlight, let's say that you have 30 years of experience, or where are you listing that? Is it in the summary? Is it within the body? Just as we're thinking about the perspective of a recruiter, in the first 30 seconds, they're looking at a resume, what stands out? So I'll say it depends. You'll always list that in your professional experience. Like you need that 30 years to show that you worked here, you worked there, and those years need to add up to 30, 100%. Now, if you are highlighting that in a summary at the top, that is something that a lot of people like to highlight. Like experienced human resources professional with 20 years of experience, right? So you could use that verbiage at the top as well. However, I do caution that if you use that summary section at the top, make sure you're including it for a purpose. If you're just going to repeat what's in your resume, if you have nothing else to say other than you have 30 years of experience, then you probably don't need it. Your 30 years of experience will show under your professional experience section. However, if you're like, I have 30 years of experience in frontline leadership and I'm looking to use this experience to benefit an operational excellence function, right? You're telling me something different, because if someone had 30 years of frontline leadership, they applied for an operational excellence role, I'm probably like, why are you doing this? So you may include that in the summary to add. So I know that there are more questions. We'll pick them up towards the end so we can move on. But thank you all for being so interested. These are amazing questions. All right, one more example, and we'll just go through this really quickly. What are your thoughts here? I know we hit on some of the points here, like those diamonds in the last one. But what are your thoughts on this format? Text too small? It is really small. Yeah, we want to make sure someone can read that.
I feel like it's gonna be too big. Like more spread out.
So you mean rather than the 2 columns? Okay, sure. So the comment was it should have been 2 pages rather than just 1. So my call out here, and the reason for this is ATS has a really hard time reading this format with a left and right column. So I wanted to call it out. I mean, it looks crisp and clean. It looks, it's black and white. It's straightforward. But I will say, when you do include that second column, and it's really popular, a lot of people use it. I would suggest not to use it for that reason. And also, outside of ATS, for me, I'm like, my eyes are darting all around, like, where am I going? And yes, I can clearly find things, but just having one column is much preferred. Go ahead.
Just really quick, font, is it preferred font or font not to be?
Never Comic Sans. I'll say that. And so the question was about font. What's the font to use? What's not to use? Just something clean and easy to read. I don't think I have a preference. I mean, stylistically, I'm a sans serif kind of girl. But you can use anything that's clean and simple. Go ahead.
What's your opinion about location? If you're applying nationwide, sometimes you reject such thing or it's not local.
So the question is, if you're applying to a role nationwide and you're open to relocation, would I reject them based on location? So the answer is, it depends. If it's a role that's based at a site and the person needs to be there and we don't have budget for relocation, I am going to prioritize the candidates that are nearby, that are commutable to the location. It's not an automatic rejection. But if it's a role that's open to relocation, we're looking at everybody, like, let's say we have a site in McPherson, Kansas that's hard to recruit for. I'm probably looking nationwide, even if I'm not open to relocation. You should put your location. You're going to need to anyway. They usually ask for your address through the application process. If you're open to relocation, you may want to put in your location. It could be Raleigh, North Carolina, open to relocation. I've seen that. I've also seen someone put like Raleigh, North Carolina, but let's say we have a lot of situations where, let's say, a family is relocating anyway, right? Like they're not relocating for the job. Let's say my husband got a role in New York and now I'm looking for a job in New York. I would likely list that in my summary, or I'd put it in the location, like relocating to New York. I would indicate that somewhere, that I'm moving anyway. Yes, I would put it at the top, so Daniel doesn't have it here, but where it says graphic designer, there in that section, you'll usually have your contact information. I would put it right up there. You could put based in Raleigh, North Carolina, open to relocation. Yep, I've seen that before and it's totally fine. It's actually really helpful for me. All right, wonderful. So let's move on because this next part is probably the most content heavy. We're talking about content, no pun intended there. So we talked about what it's going to look like. So now let's talk, and I know we touched on it a little bit in the prior section, but how are we going to format the content to make sure it's really standing out to a recruiter? All right, so we had the question about what are we looking for? So here it is. So at the very top, so all job descriptions, you'll usually see basic requirements, like the absolute must-haves, and then there's the preferred, the nice-to-haves. The very first thing I'm looking at is, do you have the must-haves? Reason being, if you don't have the education required or the years of experience, I can't move forward. Like this could look really great. You could be amazing, but if you don't meet the minimum qualifications, like I can't move you forward in this process. Okay, so that's the number one. And then let's move on from that. So let's say the job requires 5 years of experience. You've got 5 years. Now let's look at what type of experience you have. So that relevant work experience. Maybe it's not exactly what we're looking for, but is it transferable? Like we're looking at all of that. Could this experience possibly count for the type we're looking for? Educational background. Again, we're double clicking there. You have a bachelor's degree. Is it in a relevant field? Is it what we're looking for? Are these educational experiences something that will support the role? And then furthermore, we're looking for alignment with company purpose and values. Sometimes this doesn't always come through on a resume. And if it doesn't, no big deal. But if it does, it really stands out to us. So let's say you listed some type of community service work or a project that you worked on when you were in school that really aligns. Like, for example, we have a strong partnership with NCBiotech, National Society of Black Engineers. And a lot of times if I see someone was a chapter leader at NCBiotech, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. We always work with NCBiotech a lot. Maybe I even met this individual in person at some point. That's a really, again, not a have to have, but it's a really nice to have and it stands out to us. Skills, we're going to talk more about skills here in a minute, but if there are specific skills that are required or preferred for the role, it could be technical skills, certain programs like in manufacturing, if you have SAP, yes, like we want to see that and that's amazing. If it's in recruitment and you have experience with Workday, that's amazing too. So we're looking at those things, but we're also looking at the soft skills as well. Have you demonstrated communication, leadership, problem solving through your resume? And then achievements and impact. We also love to see this too for all candidates, but I'll say specifically for candidates that are new grads, like maybe you don't have a ton in terms of work experience, but you've told us about different projects you've worked on, organizations you're a member of. Like we love to see those, and even for people that are seasoned professionals, seeing that as well is really great to see community involvement, things like that. All right. So this is what we're looking for. So how do we ensure your bullet points and all of that is lining up and we're able to identify that you have these skills, you have this alignment with company purpose and values. So something we suggest is when you're building out your bullet points in your work experiences using the STAR format. So a lot of you all have probably heard of this if you've done attended different interviews or been in interview practice sessions. The STAR format is a way we usually suggest to answer behavior-based questions, but it's also super helpful here as you're building out your bullet points. So what does STAR stand for? S and T, I like to put that in the same bucket because it's a situation or the task that you were facing or that you had that you were interacting with day to day in that role. What's the action that you took to address the situation or task? And always, I suggest tying it up with a bow. What were the results? So someone had mentioned earlier, what are the metrics? Are there any metrics you can show through the role? So here's an example. So it wouldn't be uncommon to see this in a bullet point. Responsible for monitoring spending and identifying cost savings. Okay, I learned something about that person. That's nice. But you can see how this one packs much more of a punch. Researched and identified areas of excessive spending, audited and restructured phone system, resulting in 2K annual savings, and recovered 150K in unused funds. So I know some people hesitate they're like, oh, this is kind of long though. It's okay. For me, I would much rather read a story than a punch list. A lot of times you see these experiences as punch lists, and I'm like, well, I figured you probably did do that in that job, but tell me your story. Tell me more about you. And for me, I'm reading these all day long. It's like reading a good book. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this person did the thing, right? So don't hesitate to lean more towards that storytelling in your bullet points. Yeah, sure. Yes, so the question was, would I rather see, rather than 20 bullet points, would I rather see 5 bullet points that are more detailed telling a story? And the answer is absolutely yes. Again, it reads more like a story. It's more interesting to me, and it tells me more about you. So it's like a win-win situation. Go ahead. Yeah. Sure. So the question is, you've got lots of stories to tell about one role, of course. How do you know which to keep and which to omit? So yes, absolutely include the ones that are pertinent to the role you're applying for, but always include others, especially if it's something you're super proud of. I know there's some projects that I've worked on that might have nothing to do on its face, like about the job I'm applying to, but it's something that tells about me and I'm really proud of. So put those in too. That's also something you may evaluate when you're looking at the overall length of your resume. If you're like, oh man, I'm going on 7 pages, you may need to cut out some of the stories, right? But if you're like, I'm in a good spot, I can absolutely include more than do that. But that's a great question. All right. So, oh, go ahead.
Pages. Like, I know that some recruiters prefer one and you have to fit in,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but you know, if it's okay, it's not 5 or 7, but it's 2. That's
Sure. Yeah, so the question was about number of pages, and this is my HR career turns 20 this year. So I've been doing this for a while, and I remember before we had applicant tracking systems and there were paper applications and paper resumes. And in those days, yes, please only give me 1 page because I'm going to lose one over here. The staple's going to come loose, whatever the case is, right? But today, everything's electronic. So yeah, 2 pages, absolutely fine. But it's too long or too short. You have to think about what makes sense for you, right? Like the first 5 years of your career, you're probably leaning to 1 page. I will be honest, if I see a new grad, like someone who's going to graduate with their bachelor's degree next month and they've got 12 pages, I'm like, I don't know what this is about. So 1 page is probably appropriate there. But yeah, you can go on to multiple pages, but make sure you're keeping it concise. Like you do have an audience that you have to keep interested. So yeah, just not too long, not too short. We're going Goldilocks with this. Okay. Go ahead.
My section that I've seen I've used, where you just highlight some of the key skills, whether it's technical or leadership, or SME areas, but I've also heard that it's helpful to have those specific examples attached to a job experience.
Yes, yes.
Perspective of including it in like a summary set of skills or job experience or both.
Yeah. So the question was about where do you include the skills? Do you have separate skills section? Is it better to have it in the work experience? And that's actually my next slide. So I think I saw one more hand up and then we'll go to the next slide. Go ahead. Yeah.
From here, so you can tell me that.
Yes.
Relay. I mean, it doesn't come by the story, but then I think that's a very long thing. if you have 28 years, what everybody has told me is put the last 15 years. Anything before that is irrelevant. You look too much, you're too old. We don't have
All right, so no, this is a great question. So so the question for our friends online was about should you include all of your years of experience? So let's say you've got 30 years, and then there was a comment about, you know, perhaps include just the last 15 years and leave the rest off. So this is I'll say this answer is personal. It's like from me and my team. I want to see all of it. I want to see all of it. And even if the ones early in your career, you're just saying your job title and your years of experience and not having, and maybe just having one blurb about it, that's okay. But a candidate's story is so important to me. When I talk to a candidate, I ask them, I'm like, walk me through your resume, but from the lens of how did you get to where you are today? Because everyone's like starting with their most current, like what I'm doing now and working backwards. When I'm talking to someone, I'm like, start from the beginning, friend. I want to hear your story. And it's so cool. Like I see some people that ended up where they are today, like they started working in the lab and you know, just doing basic let's say microbiology, and then today they're working in investor relations. And I'm like, how did you do that? What happened? Like, and they have all the scientific background. They're like, but knowing the science really helps me to talk with our investors. It's so cool to me. So personally, I want to see it, even if you don't say everything you did at that job. I mean, if you can even remember, like I have a hard time remembering all the things, but include it. It's part of your story and part of who you are. So the question was about the length. No, it doesn't have to be in 2 pages. If you have 30 years of experience and you're only on 2 pages, I'm like, you're not telling me something. Like yeah, my resume is probably 3 or 4 right now. Yeah. And that's okay.
But I think it's so hard.
Listen, the pages don't, I'm just scrolling. I'm like on my mouse with the little scroll, or I'm on my screen just going like this. It's just an extra 2 swipes. Tell me about you. I mean, maybe 8 pages, don't do that, but if you want to go up 28 years, you should be proud of that. Go on 3 pages, get crazy, do it.
Sucks.
Yes, that is a hard change, but yes, definitely go on to more pages for sure. All right, so let's dive in as promised. Let's talk more about your skills. So when we talk about skills, you'll hear technical skills, soft skills. Soft skills isn't my favorite term because they're not really soft. They're actually really hard if you think about it when you're thinking about communication. But just for the purposes of today, I'll stick with soft skills. But so yes, you will want to have these in its own section. That's totally fine. But it means more when I see it in your resume. So there are times, let's say I have a role that's requiring experience with SAP or in, let me not say SAP. Let me say, let's say this is a role that's project implementation or system implementation rather. Let's go with that one. Okay, so you say in your summary, I'm an expert in system implementations, and nowhere in your work history do you tell me where you implemented a system. You're not coming to the top of the list. If you're on the list, I'm going to have to ask you to tell me about if you actually implemented a system. So yes, you can have a section that's got skills where you bullet these out, but we would love to see where you actually use these skills. So for example, in mine, I have Workday, but I'll talk about the roles in which I used Workday. You know, utilized Workday as our main HRIS, ATS at Pfizer or something like that. Go ahead.
But I have them in education. So would it be worth listing this because nobody that in the biotech world is going to know what they are?
If there's any, I'm sorry, the question is, if you have skills from a different industry, for example, from education, but you're moving into biotech, would you still list those skills even if they're not relevant to the new industry? If you have space, I would say yes. If you see a clear tie-in between the system that you used, that knowledge could potentially transfer over, even though it's not the same system. It's like, oh, but I understand how this works. Maybe it'll come over. And I'll say typically these sections are really short, right? You've got technical skills and you've got a few bullet points. You could even bullet point in 2 columns if you're just like telling about the system. So I would include it because who knows, the person looking at your resume might know that system and might be like, oh, I do see this tie over. So if
but it's not
the system, yeah, I think I would include it for sure. It just shows that you know how to work with technology and you know how to work with systems. Yeah. Go ahead.
Like everybody thinks that they're thinking so like it's, I guess like how can we list some?
No, but then you'd have to go and look at it, if you're being an executive or a leadership position, then you would want to put different things there compared to these things.
Yeah.
So
it's
sorry,
position
how do we that so that it stands out?
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
kind of.
I know. Okay. I love this question. So the question was, how do you indicate soft skills in your resume? Because anyone could just list these out. Like, how do you make it stand out? And I'm so glad you said this because we're actually having this conversation at work because most of our job descriptions say like required critical thinking or teamwork, communication. And it's like, well, yeah, anybody could say that they have those. But what's a better way to see if someone actually does? So I would say for the technical skills, I like to see that in a section. For soft skills, I like to see that in the bullet points. So an example of adaptability, you might make a bullet point in the star format. You're telling your story about how you worked on a really high profile project and priorities changed, quickly had to shift, and how you were adaptable in that moment. So I think if you're able to tell that through a bullet point, it's much more powerful. The technical skills, I am okay with seeing that in a section. Sometimes my eyes are going straight there, like AutoCAD, if that's required. I'm just like going, so you have it? Okay, cool. Now let me read your bullet points and see what else you've got telling me more about this. I hope that helps. All right. All right. In the interest of time, let's pop over to the next slide. So some of the questions were very timely. So we're talking about transferable skills. So if you're changing industries, what are some ways that you can build out your bullet points to highlight you can do the work? Maybe you didn't do that exact work at a different job, but I've done this work and that helps frame. So a few guidelines here. Focus on skills and outcomes, not just job duty. So how did you accomplish a certain task? That tells us a lot about you. Removing industry-specific jargon. I have some examples about this on the next page, but if you're essentially doing the same thing, but in 2 different industries, you might just not be saying the same thing. We see that a lot of time with our military folks that are transitioning into civilian life. And you did the same thing, you just call it something different in the military. So how can we make it a bit more general? Emphasizing how you did the work and the impact you had, and then aligning your experience to the new role's requirements. So that doesn't mean say you did it even though you didn't, but is there something you did that meets that requirement? So here's some common transferable skills. This list isn't all inclusive, but just to give you a couple of ideas. So project management, this exists in so many different industries, probably all the industries. So even if you didn't work in that industry, if you're going from teaching to biotech, you probably managed a lot of projects. You can make that transfer over. And let me highlight another one, process improvement. So maybe you've done that we'll use education again in the educational space, but moving into a manufacturing space. You can absolutely highlight how you work through process improvement. I mean, Six Sigma, that isn't only for manufacturing. You can use those concepts anywhere. All right, I want to come with some solid examples. So before, taught high school biology courses. Let's say this person's looking to move into training in the biotech sector. They can say they designed and delivered structured learning programs, communicated complex information clearly, and evaluated performance to drive improvement. All of those things are true. You did that teaching high school biology, all right? So just think about how you could reword the things you actually did. Managing front desk operations at a hotel. You didn't just manage front desk operations, you coordinated schedules, you resolved issues in real time, you worked with customers, focused on service delivery. And last one here, supervised a team of sales associates. So let's say this person worked in retail, supervised and coached frontline employees to meet daily operational targets. So we look at this a lot. We do hire, I'll just say in the manufacturing space, frontline leadership from other industries for sure. And all of those leadership pieces, those stay true if you have that core. It doesn't matter if you work in air filter manufacturing or pharmaceutical manufacturing, you still have those same core skill sets. All right, so my last section, we've got 5 minutes, so I apologize, I'm going to buzz through because I want to make sure I get all of your questions too. Frequently asked questions, what are common errors that you see? So we see these a lot, so avoid these if you can. Errors, typos, inconsistencies, including that photo, getting really artistic and creative. Including references. You don't need to do that. Don't use your precious real estate on including references. If we need them, we will ask you. We talked about the length, and we also talked about using verbatim text from the job description in your resume or cover letter. Please avoid that. And not customizing it for a role or customized for a different role. So there are times I'll see someone, they're saying, I'm a seasoned leader looking to step into supply chain, but they're applying for a role in the lab. And I'm like, well, you didn't really think about it, you just submit it. So just make sure, again, that final QC is super helpful. We talked about this a little bit. Should I submit a cover letter? It depends. So ask yourself these questions. If it says it's required, then yes, please do the cover letter. Do you have something that you want to say that's not in your resume, telling us more about you or why you're applying for this job, why it's exciting you? Yes, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, it's okay to skip it. If you don't have anything else to say, don't stress yourself out about it. If they're not requiring it, don't stress yourself out about it. This is a big one today. Should I use AI to help with my resume? So it's a great tool to help you. And I stress that allow it to help you, but don't let it replace your voice for a lot of reasons. So during the application interview process, we want to get to know you. We don't want to get to know your ChatGPT or Claude. We want to know you. If you rely solely on AI, we're not going to get to know you. We're going to hear, and I'm assuming that most of us have used some version of AI. You know, they all sound the same, and you know, the same types of words come up. Those long dashes, you always see them there, right? So we start to get to know these patterns, and we don't really get to know you through that. So again, let it assist and enhance your efforts, but don't let it replace you. And I wanted to include a slide on how can you use AI to help without it replacing your voice. So here's a few ideas. Using it as a resume check, not a creator. So if you're going to upload your resume and have AI give you a couple of ideas, sure. But having it build it from scratch for you, that's going to sound so much not like you and like the AI. Let's see, I'm going to just highlight a few of these since we're at 158. Highlighting transferable skills. If you're changing industries, it's great to give you ideas there. Improve clarity and impact. There are times where I'll use AI, Copilot or ChatGPT. You know what? I noticed I use this verb a lot. Give me some other verbs I can use in this sentence, like just to help vary it or maybe give something that's a little bit more impactful. So again, these are just some ideas, but if I had to bring it home with 3 takeaways. First, just be really intentional. Keep in mind what you're trying to accomplish and stay true to that through every step in the hiring process. Make sure you prepare, which part of it is writing your resume. But before you write your resume, research the values of the company. Know that you really want to work there and why. Knowing that becomes your North Star through the process. And always be authentic. Recruiters and hiring managers really want to get to know you. I know I look at hundreds of these a day, but I know there's like a human on the other side of that filling this out and really, really wanting a job. And we want to see that come through. So we really want to get to know you. So just really be authentic and true to yourself through the process. Okay, so that's all we're at Q&A, 159. Let me start. Do we want to run the mic, Susan, or is it better just to do what? Okay. Don't feel pressured. I shouldn't have said run. Oh yeah, all right. Oh, are you okay? You good? Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Two quick questions. One about breaks in your experience, and if you've had a year off to go have a baby or whatever, travel the world. So how does that read from recruiter's perspective? And second, I've seen somewhere that it's better to retitle your last or some of your titles to match a title similar to the role. So experienced project manager versus, I don't know, team lead or project advisor.
Sure.
So do you change titles within jobs? You're not, you're embellishing or you're trying to be consistent with the role advertised versus, does that help or affect anything?
Okay,
That's
got it. All right, so
Thank you.
let's start with the first one about breaks in your career. So it reads as information to the recruiter. I can't say that it looks bad or it looks good. We all have had different paths and different things that we've done. So when I'm speaking with a candidate, I might ask about it, but it's not intended to come off as like, well, what were you doing these 3.5 months in between? But it's I don't think you have to put anything there. There are some people that choose to, they might list the years and say like sabbatical or put something there, which is fine. I don't think it's required. You don't have to justify that life happened to you. And I think that's okay. So I think, yeah, it's something that you may be asked, but I think that a lot of candidates might feel pressured to say that they did something productive in that time. And the truth is, it's like, you don't have to explain, if that makes sense. Like, don't feel pressured. If you're like, yeah, I took a few years off to travel, that's it. Like, hard stop, period. It's a full sentence. It's fine. You don't have to explain yourself away. But you may be asked, just don't feel pressured to fill it with something. Also, the question about job titles, I would strongly suggest using your actual job title for a few different reasons. We're looking at your resume and then we're hopping over to LinkedIn. And if these things don't match, we're like, what is going on here? Also, when we do get to the final stages and we do post offer contingencies, background checks, and then we're also checking those things and we have a third party. And if they're like seeing inconsistencies, they're like, what is this about? And is this okay? And what are we doing? If the job title is team lead, but you actually manage projects in that role and you're applying to a project manager role, make sure that's your first bullet. Like, team lead, first bullet, project manager for such and such project. So I think you can let that come through in your bullet points. All right. Thank you for the question.
You mentioned LinkedIn. So do you, what stage do you go to LinkedIn page? Only the ones you have already pulled or everyone?
Not everybody. That would be a lot. It's um, usually once I do that first screen of the resume and I'm like, okay, this person meets the qualifications and I'm interested, then I'm gonna look. Um, and it depends on the role and it depends on if I'm looking for different information or want to learn more about the person. But I am always looking before I have a phone screen with them for sure.
If I may, I have just one more question. What do you advise for people who have, let's say, PhDs and publications? Do they list in the resume? I have heard both ways.
Um, if it's relevant to the role, yes, definitely list that out. Thank you.
I had a question regarding if you're pivoting into different industries.
Yeah.
So with you said like with the cover letter, it's more like if you really need to, I guess, add to your story.
Absolutely.
Would you say then if it's like the role that you're going for, like especially if it's a pivot? I mean, I would say you mentioned in this like I'm sure you would mention that in that
Summary section.
summary.
Yep.
But then yeah, just to clarify, like would a cover letter help you tell more about the story? Like, hey, they're pivoting. I'd kind of like to know more, or no, you still stick to like
Yes. Yes. So I would say if you're pivoting, that's when that summary and cover letter is going to come in handy because you want to tell your story on why you're looking to pivot and how your current skills can be used in that new industry or new type of role. So I would suggest doing both. You don't want it to be super redundant, but again, if you're coming across a candidate who's really only focusing on the resume and then they see that summary section's like, oh, well, she's looking to pivot, and then we'll look for more information like a LinkedIn profile, like a cover letter. So I would suggest doing both in this case. Thank you. Hi.
Thank you for bringing up the McPherson site. It's a pretty beautiful orchestrated site. Feels nice.
Yes.
Question is, do you have any incentives in giving a candid feedback to the folks that you reject or deny after an interview stage?
Like, do I personally have any incentives or?
Your profession.
So for me, so I can't give everybody really personalized feedback. Like we always want everyone to know whether they were selected or not at its very minimum. But I do have a lot of candidates that reach back out and want more feedback. And I will say every time they ask, I will always give it to them. Yeah, it is rare. I will say it's rare, and it's usually and it's so hard. It's really either a really personal thing because I'll say it's not something Pfizer tells me to do. It's something that I do because I've been a job seeker and I want to know. And it's like no one came to an interview to bomb, nobody did. And just to hear what it was, and I'll say I want to say yesterday to two different people and told them the reason why they weren't selected for the job. And they're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like the vibes were really good in the meeting. I didn't know what happened. And they were like, well, it was just this specific skill, or something like that. And they're like, okay, well, I'm really working to develop that. Thank you so much. So I'll say for me, it's more personal just because I want to, if I can, I want to really give that feedback for sure. But thank you for the question. That's a really hard part of our job.
Just to follow up on what he said. So let's say the recruiter reaches out to you and you do the phone screen. After that, they tell you they're going to schedule for next meeting, I guess, with the manager or whatever, but they don't schedule that. Like, should you reach out to them or should you just?
100%. Yes, reach out because there could have been just there could have been a miscommunication. Maybe the recruiter thought the hiring manager was scheduling it and the hiring manager might have thought the recruiter was scheduling it. An email might have got lost somewhere. I know we have an AI scheduling tool called Olivia who schedules, and Olivia is great, but she's not 100%. So every now and then something might fall through. So yes, 100%, always reach out.
Hi, from a recruiter's perspective, earlier in my career, I worked for, like Robert Half Technology and Aerotech. And so it looks like, there's like, it was project-based, so 6 months here, and then it would start an immediate project like the next weekend. But it looks like, oh, I might be jumping around, excuse me. Do you like say, like contractor, consultant? Do you put the, like, the recruiting company that you worked for as well as the company, the client?
Sure. So it is very helpful if you say that you're a contractor or a consultant, especially when you see those short stints. It frames it perfectly. Like I know what happened. Now, in terms of listing the client, that's really going to depend on what your agreement says. I know that there's some organizations that say you can't say that you worked or supported a particular client. So in that case, you don't want to say it. It's good enough if you, like, let's say you supported Pfizer, but you're not allowed to say that. You can just say a global manufacturing company. If you just put in those details to help frame, I think that's totally fine. But yeah, contracts, we see a lot of those, and it's totally okay to just list in parentheses like contractor or consultant.
Yeah, and one other question about the resume, like I saw there weren't like addresses. Yeah, not addresses, but like the company's city, state. Should you just remove those from the company, like if you were in San Diego or?
I would
I mean,
suggest putting that. I think it's helpful in these examples. They just weren't there, but I think it is helpful. Or if, let's say, you're remote, you can list that too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm letting Susan pick who goes next.
Hi, again, I have a couple of questions. One is I've talked to a recruiter a few months ago, and she said the market is really interesting these days, and they're not really hiring, they're not really moving the candidates that they don't know personally. So yeah, I was very surprised because there's so many applicants, and how do they figure out who they know, who they don't? Or they just don't look at the applications at all because they know somebody who would be interested in the role. That's one. And then the second one would be about the community service work that you mentioned at some point today. And the question is, like, if it's not a project, but it is a volunteer work, would you be including that somewhere on the resume? I don't know, to understand better the values, of the candidate and stuff.
Sure. So let's start with your second question first. So there are times where I'll see on a resume towards the bottom, it'll say volunteer work or, something like that, or community involvement, something like that. So in that section, that's where you could list different work that you've done there. Now, in terms of the first question, so you mentioned that there are organizations, or a recruiter you spoke with said they're prioritizing personal connection. So, and I'm sorry, what was the question though?
Whether that's true in the industry or that's like their personal experience and that's not happening.
Yeah. Sure. So I'll say it's not true in the industry wide. Like, for sure, a company could be doing that. I won't say that that's something super common that we see. I will say that we do at Pfizer, we do prioritize internal candidates, so people that already work with Pfizer. So we usually start with an internal only posting. And if we don't fill it through the internal process, then we'll open it up externally. So we do have a process where we're prioritizing our Pfizer colleagues first that want to grow into different roles. But I won't say there's necessarily a preference for personal connection or referrals. We love them. I think referrals are great, but it's not a filter for us. You're welcome.
Hi. So one of the things you had mentioned there was that you use AI to update your resume based on the job that you're applying for. And I've been doing that. But one of the questions I had was, it becomes a little bit different than what LinkedIn has.
Sure.
So how do you deal with that? Because like you said, you go to LinkedIn as well and you see the discrepancy.
So I'll say in this case, in that case, it's less relevant than a job title being different. Because I think we all know that, I don't want to say we all know, I'm sorry, from a recruiter's perspective, we're all expecting to see a different version on LinkedIn than, and when I say a different version, not like a different story or a different person, but each job experience we expect to be like a little bit more of a blurb. Like it's not a resume. Your LinkedIn isn't a resume. It's just more of a profile telling about you for networking purposes. So that's okay. But if you have a different job title, like for example, if it was, I think our example before was team lead to project manager, then we're kind of like, okay, well, were they a team lead or a project manager? Like what's the story?
The bullets don't match between the job descriptions, that's fine.
No, and a lot of times in LinkedIn, I would say you're probably not listing out all of your bullets. You probably just have more of a blurb about what you did there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
so I
you.
think that's okay. You're welcome. Okay, we are 15 minutes.
Yeah, I want to respect your time.
Yeah.
So let's thank Aileen for this wonderful presentation, answering all these questions. And I do want to mention we have another event coming into the center, into this space. So we need to be out. Everyone needs to be gone by right around 2:30. So if I could ask for your cooperation on that, I appreciate that.
All right.
So,
awesome. All
so
right.
thank you so much.
Thank you,
Aileen.
Susan. Thank you all for coming. Yeah, sure. I'll come down there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know.
About the job reposting, like sometimes you see in LinkedIn the job reposted, so it did like, and you see there are already like hundreds of applicants. So when you are applying for a reposted job, are you also competing against the first batch, or how do you beat?
This is okay, or I'll say it's on LinkedIn. Yeah. And like it'll sign like, you know, attach resume for the partnership with like where they're rubbing on your site and then posting it on their site. But a lot of times it's not exactly accurate, like sometimes it says this is the recruiter, but it's so like I'm not another to the fire, we're just saying that the bacteria that I'm working and then the number of applicants, it's not, but they don't really have my insight into my right, like how many apply for so I wouldn't let them just cover you. If it's everything I've always been in, just the bills for it and the rest of it.
So when you repost on a Pfizer website, what, like, what's happening there?
So I will short back with a back number because there could be a few different, like for example, I received the because the area manager wanted though it was US and then she wanted to add all the last time. So I posted it and I think also I would say there's not a lot of sometimes they shop at our and then put it out there and you know they there's a lot.
Okay, so reposting by real time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've definitely been.
Talking about LinkedIn, can I connect and ask?
Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah. And that's what he's got. Yes, I believe. It's 80. Yeah, so it's, I'm, yeah, like very little story. Yes, that's. I, problem. Because Pfizer said there was a couple of drops that I got Pfizer, and I'm not having anybody. I didn't want it to go to one more. So let me see if I can do it. Sorry, I'm not sure. No, I mean, it's just. Absolutely. Well, I don't know. I think the company is working on. But the physicians of a flavor or even like that spectrometry? It's just like a bio whale. Okay. And it's on the other. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great. Yeah. I think it's definitely because I don't have to only make them. Oh, so I'll do that. Highlight that. I'd like to talk to people about like, I think it's good if you need more space, you can like do 2 columns, bullet points.